like any machine, printers do require maintenance, and they are improving all the time. And this latest generation of Ink Giant printers we found to be even more reliable than they were before, and they've always been a very reliable printer. The changes we spoke about before included the new film feed unit that feeds the film in under constant tension. But then on the back here we have the ink tanks, and one of the things you should need to get into the habit of doing every day before you start printing is to just take a quick check and make sure there's enough ink in the ink bottles for your daily production. Now typically the advanced colors, red, green, blue and orange, they take a little bit longer to run down, and my recommendation there is don't fill them too high, don't put too much ink in them, because they take longer to be used up. It's better to top them up more frequently. Your main colors, cyan, magenta, yellow and black, you can see they're all fairly full. Next to that we have the moisturizing liquid. I put a tape on there just as a mark to see how much was used throughout the week. And then last but not least, white ink. The important thing with white ink is to make sure that the level of white never falls down below about 1/3 of a tank. And the reason for that is the agitation unit, which is the stirring paddle on the underside of this agitation motor. If the ink level drops too low, it drops below the end of the agitation paddle, and so the white ink doesn't get stirred correctly. So always keep minimum 1/3 of a tank of white, but preferably even more full than that. The other thing too is, of course, the batteries. Each of your ink tanks has a detector on it that detects when the ink level drops low. When the ink level drops low, then the red light will come on and it will make an audible sound, a really annoying beeping sound, which it's hard to ignore, which is a good thing because you don't ever want allow your printer to run out of ink. If it runs out of ink, the ink will completely drain out of the tubes, out of the shunt or the header tank, and potentially out of the head. And if a head runs without ink in it, that can be a problem. If you catch it quickly enough, hopefully it's okay, but if it ran for some time without ink, you could be in trouble. So always make sure before you start production every day to check all your ink levels, make sure they're all good. So okay, that's all we have to do at the rear of the machine. Now we're going to move across to the front of our 6-head printer so I can show you the daily maintenance. What I'm going to do is I'm going to move the print head out of its cap position, and you will see the reason why we have to pay attention to cleaning. This is really important. Now if you see here the white damper in particular, there's a big chunk of dried ink on the side of the damper there. That's what we have to avoid, because that chunk of white ink could potentially stop the print head from sealing correctly on its capping station. I'm just going to grab a cleaning cloth. So these are lint-free cleaning cloths that we use to clean the printers. I'm going to put some cleaning solution on here. Now this is literally what you should do every day. You can either do it before you start printing in the morning or at the end of every day. It doesn't really matter. So we need to clean that white ink from the edge of the damper. So I'm just going to wipe it gently with a cloth. It comes off very, very easily. So I'm going to wipe around there. You do have to be fairly gentle with the caps because the soft rubber seal is a bit delicate. You should never use anything sharp or abrasive for cleaning these because it can damage the seal. And once the seal is damaged, it doesn't cap the print head correctly. So I can see nice clean black rubber there. Now you'll notice too the capping station is moving as I'm cleaning. That's because it's spring loaded. So if I press it down, you can see it's spring loaded. So when it comes up to press against the underside of the print head, it forms a nice seal. So there's my white head. I do the same on the colored head. Just rough clean around the edges of the cap. They're fairly clean anyway on this machine, but the white wasn't. Okay, we've done those. There's no dried ink on there. And then last but not least, I'm going to clean the wiper blade, which is right here. Now the wiper blade functions very much like the windscreen wiper on your car. if you allow it to build up layers of semi-dried ink, then what happens is, instead of wiping the face of the print head clean, it actually wipes thick semi-dried ink across the face of the print head, which can potentially block the nozzles. So you can see now the wiper is clean, the cap station seals are clean. Just going to take that little bit of hair off the corner there, and we're good to go. So the next thing we do, I press enter to recap the head. Don't forget, whenever you've done any maintenance on the printer, always make sure you cap the head again. You should never leave the head uncapped for, I'd say, any more than maybe 10 minutes if you can avoid it. But as you can see, that only took a few minutes to do that. There's no real reason to have the print head out for much longer than that, unless you're doing weekly cleans. So now that I've done the cleaning of the wiper blade, I'm going to do a head clean. So I press the cleaning button. The printer will run through one of its automatic cleaning cycles. So it sucks ink through the print heads and ejects it into the waste ink tank. Then it will wipe the head, and the wiper blade will wipe the underside of the head just like the windscreen wipers in your car. And as I said before, wiper blade with semi-dried ink on it is like someone threw an egg at your car windscreen or a handful of mud, and you turn the windscreen wipers on, it's going to smear mud or egg all over your windscreen, and you don't want that. You want your windscreen wipers to be nice and clean, so they do a good job of cleaning the windscreen. Same with the wiper blade on the printer. So it's still cleaning. Once it's done that, the next thing we do is a nozzle check. Just turn the vacuum on. Okay, so it's finished cleaning. I'm now going to do a nozzle check. So I press nozzle test, and it will print a test pattern across the width of the film. We can see all of our colors there and all of our whites. Now the white's not so easy to see on this cloudy film, but what you're looking for is if there are any breaks, any little missing areas in any of the colored sections or in the white areas. I might just I'll put the light on, that might make things easier to see. So if you notice any gaps in the nozzle check test pattern, then you would repeat the cleaning again, and then do another nozzle check. So one or two missing nozzles is not likely to be a problem for you, and unless it's causing an issue with print quality, you probably can start printing, because printing in itself helps to flush ink through the heads and get things working. But if you had a serious number of nozzles missing, don't ignore them. You repeat the head cleans and nozzle tests until you get all the nozzles firing. So that's our daily cleaning regime. Clean the capping stations, clean the wiper blade, do a head clean, and run a nozzle test. Now, at the end of every week, we probably will do a bit more than that. I'm going to move the head right across to the far side. So there we go. Now in that position, if I drop this guard down, so under here you can see the individual print heads there, and this is the underside of the carriage. Now sometimes you can get a build-up of dried ink on the underside of the carriage here. So what we're trying to avoid there, like on a weekly clean, we try and clean any excessive ink from these areas, not the print heads themselves, try not to touch those, but the underside of the carriage here, we try to clean off any excessive ink there. What happens if it builds up, eventually what can happen is you'll get little strands of dried white ink that will break away from the underside of the carriage, and they will hang down. And if that happens, when you're printing, you'll see streak marks across the print, and that's because those little bits of dried ink hanging down are actually running through the wet ink and spreading it across the printed surface. So to clean that, again, you can just use a cloth with some cleaning solution, give it a good clean. That's not too bad. There's not a really excessive amount of ink there. There's a little bit on the end there that I can see with my finger. You can touch the underside of the carriage with your finger, but don't touch the print heads. So I'm just going to put some cleaning solution on my cloth there and give that a bit of a wipe on the end. You can see that's cleaner already. And on this end, Yeah, so that's not too bad. I wouldn't be too worried about that. So that's your weekly clean. Once again, as long as I haven't dislodged anything from here. Good idea again, once you've done that, I'll close the cover. We'll press enter to cap the head again. And then we'll do one more clean and another nozzle test. So I'll mention monthly cleaning. Monthly cleaning would involve the same things that we've done today. It would be a daily clean, it would be a weekly clean, but in addition to those things, there are a couple of other things that we need to take care of on the printer. And one is the carriage rail. So it's a bit hard to see here, it's behind this bearing, this belt, sorry. This is the carriage rail, this is what the print head moves left and right on. And what we need to do is just check that that rail is clean. If I move the belt out, you can see that's lovely and clean. Make sure there's no ink on there, there's no pieces of dried ink or lint, and then a little bit of oil on there to lubricate it is a good thing, maybe once a month. Last but not least, this is what they call some people call it the encoder strip. It's a bit hard to see, I'll just put my finger behind it. It looks like a smoky black clear film. This is the encoder strip. So as the print head moves left to right, it has a sensor that detects there are tiny microscopically thin black vertical lines all the way along the encoder strip. So as your print head moves from right to left and back again, there's a sensor that reads those little black lines and it counts them. So as it's moving along, it knows how far it has moved from its home position, and that's how it knows where to print each dot of ink. So over time, the encoder strip can become contaminated with ink mist or even dust or fluff. And if that becomes bad enough, or badly enough contaminated, if I can say it that way, it can cause printing problems where your printer will suddenly just print spurious colors that have nothing to do with the logo you're printing. If that should happen, you have to very, very carefully clean the encoder strip. And you can use a lint-free cloth with a little bit of cleaning solution, or just a cloth I'd suggest to start with, and you gently run it along the top of the encoder strip to clean off any ink mist. You have to be very careful that you don't lift the encoder strip out of these guides, because if you do that, the printer will then the print head will lose its position and you'll get an error. So it is something you have to do very, very carefully. Some people will clean the encoder strip on a regular basis. Other people only do it when they have an issue with printing. So if you look at it and you can see ink mist or you can see dust, maybe just gently rub it clean. Don't use anything abrasive, don't use any kitchen cleaners, because they can actually damage the encoder strip and potentially even take off the little black graduations on it. So that's the monthly cleaning. Really, it's just the lubricating the guide rail, checking your encoder strip to make sure it's nice and clean. And if you do that, take care of your printer, take care of the heads, your printer will take care of you.